This is one of the most significant cases that the justices have decided in recent years. Here, the Supreme Court ruling that President Trump's use of these emergency tariffs that he has implemented are illegal. It's the most significant economic case to reach the high court in years, sweeping implications for the economy and, of course, for presidential power. And at stake here are billions of dollars in revenue that have already been collected by the government. Pamela Wolf, the other significance here is that this is the first time that the 6-3 conservative court has ruled against President Trump in one of these major cases that have gone before the court since he returned to power in January. Now, we are still going through this case, but this is something we have been waiting for. The court said that it would take up this case on an expedited basis.
Hey guys, Adam in the house. Picture this. You're watching live television, expecting another routine news day, and suddenly the screen splits and history happens in real time. Something you genuinely believed you would never witness in your lifetime just played out in front of millions of Americans.
Well, the U.S. Supreme Court today heard arguments about President Trump's sweeping tariff policies.
The case revolves around the president's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 and whether it's an overreach of executive power.
CBS News Miami's Erica Brown tells us what the early indications are from the High Court.
Inside the Supreme Court Wednesday, the Trump administration argued the president has the legal authority to impose sweeping tariffs on foreign countries without congressional approval.
We don't contend that what's being exercised here is the power to tax. It's the power to regulate foreign commerce. These are regulatory tariffs. They are not revenue-raising tariffs.
President Trump relied on a 1977 emergency law known as the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose the tariffs. But several justices, including some conservatives, questioned the administration's interpretation of that law and where to draw the line.
The Supreme Court of the United States, the very institution Donald Trump spent 4 years reshaping, the court he bragged about building, the court he pointed to as his legacy, just turned around and gutted him on live television. 63. Not even close. Not a narrow ruling. Not a technicality. A full-throated, overwhelming rejection of one of the most aggressive presidential power grabs in modern American history.
The International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, is a U.S. federal law passed in 1977. The law grants the president powers to regulate America's international trade. And under what circumstances can it be applied? According to the law, in the face of an unusual and extraordinary threat from abroad to U.S. foreign policy, national security, or the economy. That is, during times of declared national emergencies with respect to such threats. The law authorizes the president to investigate, regulate, or prohibit any transaction in foreign exchange and properties that are controlled by another country or foreign nationals. It also gives the president authority over financial transactions and property in which any foreign country or individual has any interest.
The court ruled that Trump's sweeping emergency global tariffs are illegal. They declared that he overstepped the authority Congress actually gave him. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act, that 1977 law Trump used as his golden ticket to impose tariffs on nearly everything coming into this country. The court said it doesn't say what he claimed it says. Not even close. And Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, didn't just politely disagree with Trump's legal theory. He incinerated it. He warned that Trump's interpretation of the law would give presidents unbounded tariff power and create a transformative expansion of control over the entire economy. Unbounded. Transformative. Those aren't casual words from a Chief Justice. Those are warning flares. Those are the kinds of words designed to echo through law school classrooms for the next century. Roberts wasn't just ruling against Trump. He was drawing a line in the constitutional sand that every future president will have to respect. The court is saying there are limits. There have always been limits, and we are going to enforce them, even against a president we helped empower, even against a president who appointed 2 of us, even against a president who thought he owned us. Can you process what just happened? The Supreme Court, with cameras rolling and markets watching and the entire world waiting, just ripped the most powerful economic weapon out of Trump's hands and told him he never had the right to use it in the first place. Now let's talk about the reaction, because the live, captured-on-camera response was everything. Trump was furious, not the performative anger he uses to rally crowds, genuine, shocked, betrayed fury. He called the justices deeply disappointing. He called them a disgrace. He went in front of cameras and raged against a court he built, a court that was supposed to be his, turning on him at the worst possible moment. And then, because he had to do something, because he couldn't just stand there with his signature economic policy in smoking ruins, he scrambled. His team rushed out an announcement of a backup plan, a weaker 10% global tariff under a completely different legal authority, a tariff that every analyst immediately identified as a fraction of what he had before, a tariff that automatically expires in 150 days unless Congress votes to extend it. Given that his own party has been breaking ranks on tariff votes all year, that extension isn't happening. So the man who stood at podiums for years bragging about the most powerful tariff weapon any president has ever wielded, the man who told allies and adversaries alike that he could reshape the global economy with a stroke of a pen, is now holding a water pistol where he used to have a cannon. And the whole world watched it happen. Let's get into what the court actually said, because the legal reasoning in this opinion isn't just important for this one case. It's a landmark statement about the limits of presidential power that's going to constrain every chief executive from now on. The case is Learning Resources Incorporated versus Trump. The central question was whether the International Emergency Economic Powers Act gives the president authority to impose sweeping permanent global tariffs. Trump's legal theory was aggressive but simple. IEEPA lets the president regulate imports during a declared national emergency. Trump declared an emergency. Therefore, he argued, he could impose massive tariffs on virtually all imported goods at whatever rates he chooses for as long as he wants. Roberts looked at that argument and said, no. Not maybe, no. Not technically, no. Emphatically, historically, constitutionally, no. He wrote that the power to regulate importation under IEEPA cannot be read to authorize open-ended unilateral tariff programs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope. Every word in that sentence is a brick in a wall Roberts is building between the presidency and the kind of unlimited authority Trump tried to claim. First, Roberts addressed scope. Trump didn't target a specific country in response to a specific emergency. He targeted virtually all imports from virtually all countries. That's not emergency response. That's comprehensive economic restructuring. Congress never intended IEEPA to be used that way. Second, duration. Trump's tariffs had no expiration date. They weren't tied to any emergency resolution. They were designed to be permanent. Roberts said emergency powers are supposed to be temporary. When you impose tariffs with no end date, you're not exercising emergency authority. You're legislating. And legislation is Congress's job. Third, amount. Trump set rates that fundamentally altered global trade economics. Roberts said regulating importation doesn't include setting unlimited tariff rates at whatever level a president chooses. There have to be constraints. When a president claims authority to impose tariffs of any size on any product from any country forever, that's not regulation. That's unbounded power. And unbounded power is exactly what the Constitution was designed to prevent. Then Roberts delivered the line that will be quoted for generations. Trump's reading would give presidents a transformative expansion of control over the entire economy. Transformative expansion. From the Chief Justice. In a majority opinion, that's as close as the Supreme Court gets to saying, what you tried to do was dangerous and we're stopping it. Because here's the implication Roberts understood. If the court had accepted Trump's interpretation, every future president would have the same power. Any president could declare any emergency and impose whatever tariffs they wanted forever. That's not emergency authority. That's economic dictatorship. Roberts drew a line that protects the constitutional balance for as long as this republic endures. The composition of the majority makes this even more significant. Roberts was joined by Gorsuch and Barrett, both Trump appointees. Two of the three justices Trump personally put on the Supreme Court voted against his most important economic policy. They looked at his legal theory, evaluated his arguments, and concluded this goes too far. The law doesn't support it. The Constitution doesn't permit it. And we're not pretending otherwise just because the president who appointed us wants us to. Only Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh dissented. Only the three most ideologically conservative justices were willing to accept Trump's expansive reading. Everyone else, the center-right, the center, the left, agreed Trump exceeded his authority. That 63 split proves something Trump and his supporters have denied for years. The Supreme Court is not a rubber stamp for any president, not even the one who reshaped it. When the legal theory is bad, when the power grab is too extreme, when constitutional principles are too fundamental, even a conservative court says no. The live coverage made this historically significant. Supreme Court decisions aren't usually television events. They're released as written opinions, analyzed, summarized, filtered through commentary. But this ruling, because of its economic significance, because markets were waiting, because the world was watching, received the kind of live coverage reserved for election nights. Networks carried it as breaking news. Correspondents reported from the Supreme Court steps. Analysts broke down the opinion in real time. Markets reacted instantly. And through it all, Trump's reaction was captured and broadcast alongside the legal analysis. His rage, his insults, his desperate pivot, all playing out on split screens across every network. On one side, the calm, measured language of a Supreme Court opinion reasserting constitutional limits. On the other side, a president ranting about disgraceful justices and scrambling to salvage whatever remained of his economic agenda. That contrast told the story better than any commentary could. The immediate economic fallout can't be overstated. More than $130 billion in tariff duties collected under IEEPA authority are now in legal limbo. Over 1,000 companies are filing lawsuits seeking refunds. Trading partners who negotiated under threat of Trump's maximum pressure are recalculating now that his biggest weapon is gone. The backup 10% global tariff expires in 150 days and requires congressional action to extend. Congress, where Trump's own party members have been defecting on tariff votes all year, isn't extending it. So the leverage Trump had over global trade, the ability to threaten devastating tariffs and force countries to negotiate, is effectively gone. Because leverage only works when the other side believes you can follow through. The Supreme Court just told the entire world Trump cannot follow through. The weapon he threatened you with was illegal. The replacement expires in 5 months and probably won't be renewed. Every country Trump tried to strong-arm now knows they can wait him out. Time is on their side, not his. This ruling doesn't just kill Trump's tariffs. It kills the entire govern by emergency declaration model he's relied on for his second term. Dozens of other executive actions built on the same legal theory are now vulnerable. Border deployments, immigration enforcement, sanctions programs, domestic military operations. Every policy he couldn't get through Congress, he tried to implement through emergency declarations. The Supreme Court just said you can't take a statute giving you narrow emergency authority and stretch it into a blank check for unlimited presidential power. That principle applies to everything. Every executive action built on aggressive statutory interpretation is now open to legal challenge. Lawyers will cite this ruling. They'll quote Roberts. They'll say the Supreme Court already established presidents can't stretch emergency statutes beyond their intended scope, and judges across the country will listen. This ruling represents the moment the Supreme Court reached its limit with Trump's expansive power claims. For months, the court had given him the benefit of the doubt. They'd allowed policies to remain while litigation continued. They'd declined to fast-track challenges. That deference gave Trump room to push further, to claim more, to stretch statutes wider. Until the tariff case. He pushed past the point where even a sympathetic court could follow. And the result isn't just a ruling against one policy, it's a constitutional marker. A bright line that says this far, no further. Presidential emergency powers exist. They have legitimate uses. But they are not a substitute for legislation. They are not a workaround for congressional opposition. They are not a blank check any president can cash for any amount whenever they want. That principle, established by a 63 majority, including 2 Trump appointees, is now the law of the land. It will remain the law long after Trump leaves office, long after these justices retire, long after today's political battles are forgotten. The line has been drawn, and it is permanent. All hell broke loose on live television. The Supreme Court dropped a 6-3 opinion ripping up Trump's signature emergency tariff power. Roberts wrote that the president claimed unbounded authority and a transformative expansion of economic control the Constitution does not allow. Gorsuch and Barrett, Trump's own appointees, joined the majority. Markets reacted instantly. Trading partners recalculated. Over $130 billion in collected duties fell into legal limbo. 1,000 companies started lining up for refunds. And Trump, the man who built his entire identity on being the tariff president, stood in front of cameras raging at the justices he appointed, calling them a disgrace, desperately announcing a backup tariff that's a fraction of what he had and expires in 150 days. The court stripped his power on live television in front of the entire world. The man who thought he could do anything, who thought the court he built would never turn on him, who thought emergency declarations were a magic wand letting him reshape the economy without Congress, just found out the Constitution doesn't work that way. Never did. Never will. The justices he appointed read the law, applied the Constitution, and told him no. That no, written in permanent ink, enshrined in precedent, broadcast to the world, is the word that defines this presidency now. Not the rallies, not the tariffs, not the tough talk. The word no from his own court on his own policy in front of his own country. Every executive action Trump built on the same emergency power theory is now a target, and the lawyers lining up to challenge them have a 6-3 Supreme Court opinion in their hands saying the president went too far. We're putting him back where the Constitution says he belongs.